Abby and Mark, or is it Mark and Abby? How are you?
Hello. How you doing, Chris?
Hi.
Yes, I'm super. Have you had to sort out your little and large like the rate? Who stands on the left? Who stands on the...
Nah.
It's Ant and Deck,
I
isn't
just
it?
always let him go first.
Yeah, you're joking. You put your name on it first. What are you talking about? I never said a word.
Guys, great to see you. And already we've had a little chat, haven't we? I'll tell you what, it's been like a bloody therapy session for me. I'll have to be employing your, employing your services, guys. It's so. First off, welcome back to the show, Mark, because we had a great chat last time you were on, and it's great to meet you, Abby. Your book, Weapons of Mass Protection. We see what you did there, but great to see it doing so well. Almost like 5-star reviews across the board, really, and
Well, it was. Somebody put a 1 star, but that happens with trolls when you do this sort of thing.
yes, it's always hard as an author that you get this conduit that people can say what they like. It's probably the same with being a content producer as well. People can pretty much say what they like, and you have very little sway over it. And sometimes it's just defamatory. It's just
Yeah.
not. It's not true. And I had an issue with Amazon, and it was like I wrote a memoir about living in Hong Kong, and the review was like saying, this guy has never lived in Hong Kong, and it was like, well, hang on a sec, you can't just say that. You got anyway.
Yeah. It's just the way it goes with the territory.
Yes, and that's where you need your weapons of mass protection, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you would hope that people would be, using their brains and deciding for themselves if they like something or not, and if something's real or not. Although it is getting much harder these days to tell the difference.
But it's like community notes on Twitter. Sounds great. Sounds like a much better thing than Snopes, which is obviously just a propaganda machine. But then I did a video saying you can't. I'll be careful what I say because we're on YouTube. You can't. And then the community note said you can, and I'm like, no, you can't. But you can't argue with it because it's already there.
Yes, the whole thing's funny. There's such an element of control that's taken away from us. I I did a wonderful podcast with a wonderful doctor of archaeology and because I flashed up a Neanderthal woman, and according to quote unquote science or history, Neanderthals were like 350,000 years ago. And unfortunately, they didn't have clothes back then, as people may have worked out. Um, Underneath her very hairy chest, you could just make out a pair of boobs, Neanderthal boobs.
Neander boobs.
YouTube demonetized that video.
Yeah.
That I just felt it's crazy, really, isn't it? Like I put all the time into that video, all the editing, all the time to chat. I think it was Elizabeth Weiss was the wonderful doctor's name. She gave up her time. She's a studied archaeologist of like 30 odd, maybe even longer years. And some moderator who probably lives in the Philippines went, "Oh, boobies. Dung." So, guys, let's just have a chat. And by all means, please bring it, make the links back to your book wherever. Why do we need weapons of mass protection, practical tools for spiritual warfare?
Well, I'll start this one, Abby, this time. Is that all right? Because, as you may know, Chris, I started my podcast during
That thing, let's just call it that.
that thing.
Health crisis.
Everyone on my channel knows when we say that thing
Okay.
and procedures, what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I've lost 2 YouTube channels in the last 4 years, so I've kind of got out of the habit of using code. So thanks for that. So when I started my podcast when that thing happened, which was, yeah, extremely interesting time. And I was talking, I came at it from a kind of, I was guided by God to do it. That's the first thing. And I say that as somebody who was an atheist for years. After my dad died when I was 17, I came out of the chapel arrest and I just shouted up, "I hate you." And that's the end of my relationship with you, because I couldn't believe a just God would cause so much pain. But then I've just had this massive spiritual journey. I hate saying cliche terms like that, but it's been like that for me. The last 15 years has just been one thing after another, after another, after another. And then when that thing happened, I knew it was coming because I'd done enough studying of what the plan was. And when it actually hit, it was massively into multi-dimensional experience for me. And I got told, start a YouTube channel. And I started talking. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I've done thousands of hours since then. In fact, every single day since then has been busy with producing content, courses, books, tour in America. It's taken over my life. And it's been very much focused on the spiritual aspects of this. So my show was originally called Adventures in a Meat Suit because I read somewhere that somebody said that, being a human being is like being a ghost in a meat suit, which I thought was quite funny. And because we're spirits having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. And as the show progressed and that thing progressed, which we're still in, it changed its name to Adventures in a Cosmic Suit because I get deeper and deeper into finding people like Abby. And I met Abby a couple of years ago, and we live in the same country in Ireland, opposite sides. And we did a film about, because Abby's a shamanic healer and psychotherapist. Is that the right word? And we did a show about soul retrieval, and then we just became mates over the last couple of years. She came. I ran a retreat in the Sahara. Abby came along to that. I did a couple of shows at Manchester Monastery. Abby came to those, and I think it was about nearly a year ago. She said, "Look, people are struggling really hard. This is very tiring, this whole
Mm.
spiritual war that we're in." And she said, "People are struggling. Do you want to write a book with me about how to protect yourself?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And that's why we produced this book a couple of months ago, which is called Weapons of Mass Protection: Practical Tools for Spiritual Warfare. And before all you trolls go, "Oh, he's just flogging a book," you can get it for free if you haven't got any money. It's not about the money. We're just trying to help as many people as possible, because the reason I did it, apart from the fact that working with Abby's brilliant, she's brilliant at what she does. Um, it's a really useful book for anybody who's struggling right now, to give them tools to help them through, which, from my, you know, selfish perspective, means I'm hoping that the stuff that's in this book will help us get to the end of this extremely long and arduous journey faster. Is that quite a concise answer?
Yes, and we're supposed to be in service, aren't we? So we're supposed to
Yeah.
be helping others.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are. Yeah. Yeah.
Abby, you've got a fascinating history. I mean, shamanic healer. I. It's kind of weird. If I'd have spoke to you 20 years ago, like, I never would be having this kind of conversation. But and now it's the sort of thing I might have like 3 days in a row. In fact, this week, I've been talking exactly about shamanism. Funnily enough, and it wasn't that long ago. A few weeks ago, I went out for a run around a beautiful lake we've got near us, and the chap I was with kept stopping to give burnt offerings I don't
Okay.
know his particular form of shamanism, but so yeah, quite interesting. How did you find yourself in this life, Abby?
Well, I think you're you
Mm.
remember who you are. And that's pretty much what everyone is doing right now. And it can be shocking to remember who you are. But for me, the journey started many years ago when, you know, you choose your parents spiritually. Everyone heard that. And, it sounds like a cliche again, like Mark saying cliche, but these things are real things. And my parents made my life very difficult for me as a child. Now, everything's been healed in my family, and I'm speaking to everyone, and I don't disclose what happened. But when I was in my 20s, I had a breakdown, and it was a holistic breakdown. It wasn't just my mind, it was everything. And I was looking for someone to help me. And I went to the psychotherapist, counselor, who saw me for 6 sessions. And those sessions I had basically was like, it took me most of the session to calm the fuck down and then to start to talk about how I was. And then he would open up something that had been closed and then leave me sitting in it for a week. And that was like, it took, so 7 days in a week, it took me 3 days to realize what the heck I was sitting in, maybe 2 days to clear it. Then I started to feel better. And then I go back and have another session and he'd do it again. It was just, so after the 6 sessions with him, he said, there's nothing more I can do for you. I was in my 20s, and you know how you misunderstand things? I mean, particularly when you're in your 20s. He said to me, there's nothing more I can do for you. And I heard him say, there's nothing more that counseling can do for you. That's what I heard. Now, if he was a bit more mature as a therapist, he could have said, I'll refer you on to somebody else who might be able to do more with you. But he never did any of that. He just left it cold. So I was wandering the streets, upset, devastated in my 20s, ready to take drugs. I had actually bought a packet of cigarettes. It's really pathetic when I think about this. I was going to smoke this packet of cigarettes if it killed me. Great stuff. And my best friend at the time just took them off me and threw them in the bin. And she said, no, you're not allowed to do that. I don't smoke. I never have. So I went into a bookshop, as you do, and this book was flashing and glowing on the bookshelf. And it's incredible because as I talk about this, many of my clients say the same thing. Particular books jump out at them in particular points of their life. And this book for me was about shamanism. Here I am growing up in Catholic Ireland, where, all of these things are beaten out of you. For myself, my background, my family was Orthodox Jewish, but we didn't grow up going, being Orthodox Jewish. We were just paying lip service to it. So I never felt any religious need to not go there. So I just started to read and explore and open and do things with my hands. And, when I felt sad, I found myself just pulling things out of my body. But I wanted to learn more about how we're made. So, as I had a job and was always angry and wanted to have children and didn't want to turn around and slap them out of anger before I listened to what was going on. I said, no, I need to get a hold of myself. So I learned about psychotherapy. I became a psychotherapist and realized, hang on, if you're sad, you can talk about being sad, but it doesn't take away the feeling. But this thing kind of does take away the feeling, and that's not psychology. That's not psychotherapy. So what I ended up doing was becoming a Reiki master, healer, teacher. I went and did shamanic training and I melded everything together to create what I call shamanic psychotherapy, which is I'm talking about the sadness. I elicit it in myself. I'm feeling it. It's okay because I know it isn't me. It's like in Irish, we say sadness is upon us instead of saying I am sad. Like in English, you say I am sad, then you start to identify as the sadness. Whereas in Irish is a beautiful language, which we don't speak anymore. But anyway, so I'm sitting with the sadness and then I do my shamanic, I'm taking it out and I'm getting rid of it. And now I feel okay. And it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change why I was feeling that way. But it's changing how I'm engaging with the world. It's changing, who I am in this moment. And when I'm not drowning in the sadness, I can see a way out of it. And that's why I went to Mark to say we need this book because people are drowning in their sadness, they're drowning in their anger, they're aching and hollow and empty in the bereavement of the things that they had expected to be there for them that wasn't. But also, and I'm sure you've probably talked about this before, how we leak energy out. Things take our energy from us. We're depleted in our energy. And I don't like to toot my own horn or say I'm really good at anything, but one of the things that I know I am good at is taking very complicated things and making them really simple. And I distilled down the soul retrieval process into something that anybody could do at any time for free. I was very, the work comes through me and out from me, and it is not me. So I found people, since I've done that, are taking it and using it, and that's fine because nobody owns this. But I'll give you an example. I'm looking for my phone here. You're having a fight with somebody on Twitter, on YouTube in the comments. And imagine that it's in there somewhere. So this is the portal to that engagement that you're having that's taking your energy. You can take your hand and pull your energy out of it and say, I don't want to be always wondering, did they reply to my comment yet? Should I check? What are they saying about me now? You take your energy out, put the phone down, clean it, and take it back. You can feel it tangibly. That piece of your soul, your essence, your energy, your power comes back. And I'm looking at all these farmers who are having things taken away from them. And I'm looking at all these business owners whose businesses are closing down. And Mark and I were at an event where one stupid woman made one phone call and the whole event got cancelled. And everyone was walking around in a tizzy, like in the cartoons with the spinning thing over their head going, we paid for all these speakers to fly over for this event, and what are we supposed to do now? And I said to Mark, we need to teach people how to take their power back. That's what the book is. Take your power back. And there's so many different ways to do it. And once I learned how to do it, I'm sharing it with everyone. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking over here, but
Hey, that's what you're on the show for.
yeah.
Yes. Is there a kind of synopsis of taking your power back or soul retrieval, or was that the example you
That's
just
kind
gave?
of, well, if, and I know what we all think of Disney now, but I used to love Disney as a child. And there's the image of the princess walking and leaving all the sparkle dust behind her. But if you can imagine that the sparkle dust is part of your energy and you're throwing it everywhere, and then there are people with hoovers coming and sucking it from you. I work with a lot of people who are empaths, people who feel other people's feelings. I'm a healer for healers. And it's usually the mother-daughter or even the mother-son relationship where it's a codependent, where one person takes all the energy and the other person gives all the energy and has nothing left. So to say, okay, how full is my energy now? How much of me is here and how much of me isn't here? And how do I get that back? And sometimes it's as simple as saying, all the energy that's mine, that's not here with me, come back. But as I was doing this over time, I was realizing, well, there was a piece of me in an argument with someone, and it got covered in their emotional pain and in their anger, and it's come back, but it's dirty. Make it simple. So let's clean everything before we embody it again. So the simplest way to do it is say, I call all my energy back that's not here. Clean it. You can imagine it. You can click your fingers. You can visualize it getting brighter and then allow it to come back. But then what you do when you have that power, you feel a little bit better and you realize, oh, well, I've taken a piece of someone else's power. So I'm giving that back. And you release that. And if you're a really nice person, you clean it before you give it back to them, or you can just give it back to them. It doesn't really matter. And I think doing it, repeating it over time, you end up with more energy, you end up more vibrant. Your body needs resources to heal itself, and the biggest resource that you have is your life force energy. And when everyone is consuming your life force energy and you're allowing it to happen, then your body gets sick, you get tired, you get exhausted, and people age quicker and lose their zest and vitality. So there's a lot of very simple things that we can do on a regular basis to just keep that vitality coming in. Because in the book that Mark and I wrote, one of my fears was there's so many things in here, it's going to be completely overwhelming to anyone who's coming at this new. We talk about food, we talk about water, we talk about lotion, we talk about the sun, we talk about all the poisons that we're in. And where do I start? What do I do? You start with taking your power back, because only with your power can you then do the next thing you need to do. So,
Yes. I saw that you had a heading of vegetables. I, I'll be
I knew we
honest.
were going to get into this. I was hoping we'd avoid this one.
Well, I'll be honest. I was quite glad you couldn't. It didn't offer you to read that in the sample on Amazon, just because it was what I was saying earlier. People really love to buy into narratives and at the expense of losing all sort of common sense. And
Yeah.
you know, I
Well, that's
see.
kind of what this book is, Chris. It's not. I think we're in a post-guru age, right? And we're not putting ourselves out there as gurus in this book at all. What we're doing, and we disagree in the book about some things as well. It's really a conversation between a man and a woman who've had interesting spiritual life and experiences, saying, "Well, this is what happened for us," and we put it in a good structure, and it's a decent tone, and people seem to be liking it. But it's really as a jumping off point. It's not a preachy thing. It's saying, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And this is what happened to me." And that's really what it's about. So we're not preaching stuff in here. Just um, because I'm fed up of all that preaching stuff as well, and I'm not married to any idea. Actually, I just talk about my own experiences, what's happened to me, share that, and it either resonates with people or it doesn't. Or if it, and people find the information, like the teacher arrives when the student's ready. They find the information that they need when they need it, and off they go. And because this is a very personal journey, this whole situation that we're in since the thing that happened, can't remember what the code is. That thing,
That thing. That's
that
it.
thing, that thing. It's really becoming apparent. I mean, you've only got to look at what people are posting on social media that, talking about demons and stuff is like when I first got online and started talking about demons, I was embarrassed to talk about it. It was like, because my earliest memory is demons trying to recruit me as a kid. And that's a deep, deep, powerful memory. It was not a dream. It was over a sustained period of time. And I started talking about this 4 years ago, and I thought I came off that podcast and I was like, oh shit, I've got a business. I'm ruined. I'm talking about demonic possession as a, as a kid. And then I got all these emails from people saying, same thing happened to me. I've never talked about it. I've never talked about it. And this is the same when I got involved a few years back in a massive legal uh, lawsuit against the Catholic Church, and I witnessed 30 plus men in their 70s talking about abuse, being abused at a school 60 odd years ago. And I listened to all of their testimonies in floods of tears for over 3 days. And I remember at the time just feeling so heartbroken for them because the only people they'd ever told were their parents, and their parents backed the priest, not them. So their entire life was in this incredible guilt and shame and harrowing hell that they were in their entire lives because of this systemic, ultimately satanic abuse that had happened to them. And, and I think we're in a time where we need to just open up these subjects, and it's not a case of I'm not saying that everything in this book is right. I'm saying everything in it is true as far as we could make it from Abby and mine and Abby's perspective. And off you go and do your own work on yourself, because I keep saying the same thing. You're the only person here. You know, this whole place, this whole experience, this human experience is your journey, and everything we're seeing is there for you and your development, the development of your soul, which ultimately you chose. So, I don't know if that's managed to steer you away from the subject of vegetables or not, but I did my best.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about those men, what comes to my mind is what I was saying about power loss. They take the brightest of us, they see us as children and take that power from us. And then, isn't there an English, is it hobbled, is the word, where you get hobbled then for your whole life and you can never get that power back because people don't talk like us. People don't know how to take the power back. People don't know that it is a thing that they can do. To then have a voice that's even strong enough to say no more. And I think it's like this wave that's come through since people are learning how to do this and saying no more. I mean, I've been watching loads of Mark's videos and his podcast and all the different people that come on. And what really strikes me is how people give their power so quickly away to somebody. They invest in that person, and then that person fucks up. They're a person. And then there's anger because they're so invested in this person being a thing that they expect. Then they lose more energy over that instead of saying, well, this is my energy. I'm watching you, but I'm investing in me, and I'm making allowances, which is kind of something what you were saying, Chris, before we started recording, to make allowances for people to make a mess, for people to be people, but I'm the adult in my world and I'm going to be responsible for me and show up as me. But we're conditioned to be those children that are dependent on somebody or something else. The government giving you everything so that you don't learn how to get that for yourself. The vegetables, the food in the supermarket, so that you don't have to go out and kill the animal and appreciate what you're eating because you've grown the animal, you've fed it, you've saved it from being sick, and then you've taken it and slaughtered it and eaten it, and you appreciate it. We don't appreciate our food, whether it be meat or vegetables or anything like that. And we're going through a growth phase, I think. It's like the baby to the toddler and the toddler to the child and the child to the teenager. I think as a collective, we're going through a growth phase where we're saying, okay, we're going to have to put a bit more energy in. We're going to have to show up a little bit more for ourselves. And we don't like the way things are right now. And it's had this ripple effect over so many different places, so many different topics, because there was slippage. It's like just slip all this stuff in and people aren't noticing, and people are beginning to notice now. And I think one voice allows another voice allows another. So when that thing happened, there were very few voices talking. Many people knew, many people felt, many people didn't say. But as people started, then you get your power to say, yeah, well, I think that way too. And now we're at a point, I think, where people have a choice. Do they want to continue handing their power over to something that's become so ridiculous, that it's just totally ridiculous? Or they take their power back and say, no, that's not for me. And I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to do my own thing here. And you can come and join me here if you want to, but I'm not going over there and I'm not listening to any of that stuff anymore. So,
Yes, I think it's always good to take an eclectic approach to life. And you do see some quite upset people that they're not right, they're not ready yet to understand that you can listen to anyone. You don't have to, doesn't mean that you subscribe to their to their theories. I think it's just best to listen to everyone. I mean, if you think about it now, if Jimmy Savile, for example, if all his history is now erased, and that seems to be the way that we're going in this sort of 1984 world, well, how then are people able to have a listen to what this guy was all about and how good he was at worming his way into special circles and getting around young people and old people and royalty and da 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 da. And so my thing would be, just because you watch, you might watch an episode of Jim Will Fix It, that doesn't mean you have to like the bloke or that you agree with what he did. It's helping you build your schema, your framework with which to go forward and say, well, he was that kind of guy. He was brought up like that. He was a massive, for example, mummy's boy who didn't have who she probably overdoted on him or whatever. And I just think that's the answer to gnosis. Eventually, you get to knowing. You see you've learnt so much stuff. You can look at it.
You hit the nail on the head with that, Chris. Because what's been happening is we have handed our power over to people like the BBC, the Irish national broadcaster RTE, and trusted that they're going to give us that balance. But they haven't been. So we haven't had those conversations in plain sight where we can make those decisions. We've been fed that propaganda over and over again, where people come out and parrot stuff. They've been taught what to think and not how to think. And then people like you and Mark and other people come along and have a variety of voices. You have to learn, it's like the collective are learning how to cope with that. Mark says many times, I don't always agree with everybody I'm having on my show. I'm just giving you the information. You decide what to do about it. But it's amazing how many times you have to repeat that.
Well, it is. But, the thing was the best thing that ever happened to humanity, because for the first time in history, we know who everybody is. The people that stood up at that time are legends, as far as I'm concerned. But we've still got to take care of the people that were coerced, pressurized, lied to. They still deserve our compassion. I think, because otherwise we become just as bad as what was before. And we're going through these growing pains as collectively, and it looks crazy, and it looks like shit, and it looks like 1984. But I'm still an apocalyptimist. I still believe the apocalypse just means the great unveiling of truths, and that's what is actually happening before our eyes. I mean, look at all the satanic stuff. Even all the kids are talking about it. You know, I've got 5 kids under 21, so 4 teenagers, and they're all their mates are talking about it. They're seeing this stuff, and they're in the back of my car, and they're going, "Oh, that was satanic," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is great. This is great. There are people actually talking about this stuff now." Which, you know, the first time I heard of Satanism, despite growing up in a village which was taken over by a cult called the Jesus Army, which was run by a pedophile who raped my dad, and one of the members of that cult abused me when I was about 10 or 11. Despite seeing all that, I never knew it was satanic. I didn't hear the term really, apart from in movies and books, until I was seconded when I was in the Air Force to Canada, and I flew in a Cessna. I think it was a Cessna with the daughter of an F-16 pilot from the RCAF, and we flew over Vancouver Island, and she did a steep turn. I was about 17, 18, and she pointed down to this huge mansion, and she said, "See that house?" And I went, "Yeah." She said, "That's the headquarters of the Satanists." And I went, "I beg your pardon?" I didn't know what. I was like, "What?" She said, "You can't get to that house unless you know how to get to that house." And that's where the Satan is. And I spent the next 2 weeks in Canada going into shops and garages going, "Is he a Satanist? Is she a Satanist?" I was terrified. But it was true, you know, and she was telling the truth. And she knew, and I often think back to this. This is like 37 years ago or something. How how did this 18-year-old girl in the military family know about the satanic stuff? I mean, if you think about that, the implications of that are massive. And really, this points to, and this is coming up in the consciousness now, that the US military have been, you know, it's been a captured country for at least 100 years, which coincides with the capturing of the medical industry with the publication of the, probably going to get the name wrong, the Fleshner report. I can't remember the name of it, but the Rockefellers took over medicine in 1912. And if you, and what we're going through at the moment when we're looking at ideas like the concepts of the Tartarian Empire, for example, or getting free energy, Nikola Tesla, this kind of stuff that nobody really gave a shit about is actually being discussed by hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people now, compared to even a few years ago. And this is to do with the development of us as a species reclaiming our sovereignty. So the concept of sovereignty is something that I first came across maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And I spent a lot of money at the time because I was teaching business. I was a business advisor, marketing advisor for years. And I spent a lot of money on a social media company trying to launch myself as the sovereign entrepreneur. And all I got back was people going, "Are you a king?" And I was like, oh God, it was such a difficult concept to explain 10 years ago. But now we're getting more and more and more of that. I mean, even in the Dáil, which is Ireland's House of Commons, 4 years ago, the Taoiseach, who's the Prime Minister, stood up and said this concept of sovereignty must be stamped out in Parliament, right? You know, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. But then you've got someone like Trump comes along saying you can't have a sovereign nation without sovereign people, which for me means that we've, you know, the most enjoyable part of the last 4 years, despite the madness, has been, okay, we need to look at every single aspect of our lives, from food, which we've touched upon, to money, because we're still in a financial system, to your thoughts, your emotions, your spirituality. So we're healing and learning all at the same time. And collectively, on a consciousness level, that is winning this war on consciousness because we're rediscovering our true power as individuals. Because, I know you're in the military, Chris, and my favorite memories from being a teenager were being dumped in the middle of nowhere and being told to survive for 4 days, and all you've got is a knife and a parachute. And then you'd have to find rabbits, you'd be freezing, you'd be pissing on your boots. I mean, it was survival. It wasn't hardcore survival, but it was survival, and it's something every kid should go through, really. And that's where we're at, and that's really exciting, actually. And this book is really about taking your power back, but it's really about spiritual sovereignty, because we've been ring fenced or put into limited hangouts our entire lives. This is how trauma based mind control works, but it's also how the controllers of this realm, which I believe is a farm, and we're the farm animals. We're not the highest ones in the food chain, have controlled us, because what I said earlier about us being spirits having a human experience, right? So because of that, we are spiritual beings existing in this fractal of God we call a human being. And they've ring fenced us with things like Catholicism, for example. So here's all the answers over here in this lovely place that you can come to every Sunday that will quench your spiritual thirst, but it's not giving any of the answers, right? So it's ring fenced you, it's giving you a limited hangout long enough for you to die and then get recycled and come back, because they're feeding off your loosh. They're feeding off of the system that they've created, is one that creates fear, anxiety, anguish, all the stuff that is literally food for demonic entities in the lower fourth density. And they're also taking the blood of our children. The big thing that people, I'm going to keep saying it until the day I die, 22,000 children every single day for the last 70 or 80 years at least have gone missing, according to official statistics. Go and do the research yourself if you don't believe me. A lot of people just can't get that number into their head.
Don't say the thing that begins with A.
No, I won't say
everybody who knows what we're talking about.
I won't say the word.
It's only that they that subject came up. Someone had their channel taken down.
Well, I had my last YouTube channel taken down with 60,000 subscribers because of Jimmy Savile, because I did a video postulating that Jimmy Savile was in a long line of wizards leading up to Philip Schofield, all the way back to John Dee, Ian Fleming, Aleister Crowley, and I put the line together. Instant takedown, no strikes, no warnings, just took the whole channel down, because they don't want us to know this stuff. They don't want us to understand this, and that's the biggest thing that we're being distracted from. The biggest industry on the earth. I'll try not to say any words that will get you into trouble, but
It's really interesting though, because it's making me remember, being a child and wishing I was magic, wishing I could do
you were.
things. And we all are.
We are.
That's why these books like Harry Potter are so popular in the mainstream, and okay, you have the people who realize what Harry Potter's actually saying, but then you have the people who are taking it literally, and they're the muggles who go out and buy all the gear and dress up as wizards every weekend and pretend.
Hang on, I do that. What are you talking about?
Pretending wizards, and then the actual wizards. I was speaking to a friend of mine who said to me that some of the spiritual magical knowledge in the J.K. Rowling books could only be got from very, very high level, attainment in some of these secret societies, and some of the concepts, around Voldemort, he's coming back, and the Horcrux and all of that they're real things that actual people like John Dee and Jimmy Savile and all of those, Aleister Crowley, would have done those arcane, magical, alchemical practices. So it's possible, so I'd like to say, using Honey's language, maybe J.K. Rowling is a white hat who's here to wake up the world.
Well,
And
she's on Twitter the last few years.
Yeah, she's been doing incredible stuff, but planting the seeds in the collective, which is reaching a crescendo, and people are saying, actually, yeah. Because when I'm doing my work with my clients, I say to them, it's like Harry Potter at Hogwarts in first year. You have to say the spells out loud and do all the actions. But in second year, you're more confident, so you can do it in your head and you don't have to show anyone that you're doing it, It's the same thing with us, So I suppose, with the drip feed from the white hats, it's inevitable that we're going to reach a level of momentum where suddenly things are kicking off and we're realizing, hey, hang on a minute, this isn't right. And we're really at that point at the moment, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to know if. Yeah, it depends what your take on life is, whether we think humanity needs rescuing or whether we're supposed to make peace with the fact that, hey, what will be, will be. Because humanity's quite a pigeonhole, isn't it, really? If you think that we're consciousness or we're universe experiencing itself subjectively through this experience, and as such, well, from that perspective, it doesn't really matter what human beings do. You're the big man. You're not the little player on the sort of ground.
But shamanically, everything has consciousness. Even the skyscrapers have consciousness. Even the desk that my computer is, even my computer. I mean, when I'm sure you've probably experienced this, when you and your guests have an epiphany, there's a release of energy. There can be a freezing on the internet. Your computer can go, whoa, I don't know what's going on here.
That's normally the 7-7 brigade on my channel. It is so funny. I was chatting with somebody once. Oh my God, what was it about? As soon as we started to hit the dodgy stuff, bloody light bulb shattered and it come down on my head. We were like, whoa. But further to what I was saying is, because if we are, let's just say we are starting to come together, we are starting to get this, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, there's stuff now being talked about openly on Twitter, on YouTube, but the people speaking about it are holding their hands up and saying, I probably won't be here for very long,
But, yeah.
And it's stuff that has always been taboo to talk about. There's certain people you're not allowed to talk about, and all that's changing now. I'm talking about the big club, the people that think they control everything. Then they've done a good job of it. You've only got to what you mentioned, the depravity, the bloody Eurovision Song Contest, England's entry, or was it Great Britain? Apologies. Is 4 boys rogering each other in a boxing club shower.
Lovely.
You saw the Irish one, did you?
The Irish one was shocking.
Oh, I saw some demonic stuff. You got to laugh at it because they're trying. In their minds, they think they're sucking the energy from you. They're keeping people in a, they're sculpting their Sodom and Gomorrah, But my point was, people are really starting to get stuff. Stuff is being discussed, like you say, Mark, Tataria and the chemtrails is something that once you get, you can't put that genie back in a bottle because you have to bloody look up every day and see that it's normally pissing down on your head. My question is, there's a lot of work to be done there, folks. And, and I've got this theory that not only is kind of the meaning of life, is it meant to be that human beings, they've got this ability for self-reflection and consciousness, that they're supposed to realise that their universe experiencing itself, it's a bloody clever experiment. We're not these individuals in the third dimension. We are collective consciousness, But further to that, we're supposed to realise we can't trash our environment. Yes, it's lovely using up all the oil. It means we can all live pretty pampered lives, can't we? And I'm just putting this out there, and I'm not. This isn't a climate change thing or a man-made. It's nothing. This is called intellectual reflection, isn't it? And philosophy is the idea that we're supposed to get we use this clever brain that we've got that's very different from all the rest of the animals, because we have this ability to self-reflect and da-da-da-da, is the idea that we're supposed to go, hang on a sec, let's not destroy our environment anymore. What can we do to live in synergy with Gaia rather than just destroying the ecosystem in every single way we can? And I say that because you're getting, yes, a lot of people are waking up, but
Have you heard of Ayni? AYNI. It's a shamanic concept of living in harmony, in right relationship. That's what they say. We live in right relationship with each other, but we live in right relationship with our environment as well. I mean, I did go to Morocco with Mark, and we took these cars into the Sahara Desert, and we were driving over the Atlas Mountains. And at one point, there was an excavation in the Atlas Mountains that was so deep and so harsh that I felt sharpness and pain in my physical body. And I realized that I was feeling the mountain's pain at being hacked away so harshly. Now, what were they doing there? They were building a little village, but they weren't paying attention to how the rock face was feeling, or did the village actually suit the way that the rock was based? They're doing what they do. And that's what we've been doing. We've been digging up stuff. We've been building these cities. We haven't been creating in harmony with the environment. I've become very aware recently of the plastics, microplastics that are in everything. I bought a fleece that was made of recycled plastics. And then my husband said, you put that into the washing machine, it's going to release all the plastics into the water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we still haven't got it right. So I believe it is about living in right relationship with everything, with the trees and the animals and each other. When you look at the cities, did you see that one that they're building, the very, very tall one? I think it's in the middle of the desert, somewhere like in Qatar or somewhere like that. And they're just going to basically put as many people as they can into this block. It's like chickens in a cage. That's why they have to take the chickens' beaks off, because otherwise they peck each other to death. That's going to happen with people if you give them space like that. We have to stop living like that and start being open and giving everyone what they need and living in cooperation. But we haven't been in charge. That's the whole point of our book. We haven't been in charge. It's been darkness that has been creating all of these things to separate us from our power. So as we start to become sovereign beings, we can say, yes, we should be looking at other ways of fueling. Like, we don't want a wind farm on the land. Put two giant wind turbines out in the sea somewhere, and two big ones
Well,
will
not
do
at
more
all.
than a whole wind farm.
We've already got the answers. I mean, this is everything is there to create this kind of duality situation. And when you're talking about should we look after the earth, climate change, and everything, it's kind of like the arguments presented is either this or this. Well, actually, it's not. It's something else.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You get trapped in this or this, black or white, Republican, Democrat, Labour or Conservative. It's a constant toing and throwing. What we have to do is stand back and go, all right, you carry on with that, making that noise. I'm going to go and look at this alternative idea. And a lot of these alternative ideas are already there. They're already there in front of us. This is why I brought up Tartaria, because the evidence of free energy in architecture, in beautiful architecture with sacred geometry, which creates harmonic frequencies, which creates healthy people without disease, puts people in ease, in what you call it, right? Living with
In right
nature,
relationship.
right
Yeah.
relationship with nature. We've already done it before. And one of the things that the reason why I still stand up and shout about stuff and take the piss out of the politics is because they need to be exposed because these are the people that have been telling us it's all your fault. It's like the earth is burning and it's all your fault. Well, actually, it's not our fault. It's like we've just been sleepwalking into, well, we get born into a system, right? Which is satanic from the beginning. I just released a show this morning with Janice Barcelo talking about the satanic rituals in hospitalized birth, which are all designed to break the bond between parents and all designed to remove your soul as fast as possible and create a non-thinking automaton that doesn't know anything about its heritage, genetics, nothing. And that's why this big test from God called the Thing had to happen, because if it didn't happen, we would have gone into destruction. I mean, everybody should look at the Georgia Guidestones if they've never heard of them, which is the Satanic Ten Commandments, which was destroyed 2 years ago. But it was built in 1980 at a cost of $30 million by a guy who said his name was a Christian as a joke. Number one of the Satanic Ten Commandments was to maintain humanity in perpetuity with nature under 500 million. Well, I read that, I don't know, 20 years ago, and I went, hang on a minute, if there's 7 billion people here, that means they're going to kill 6.5 billion people. That's why I knew this time was coming, because it was set out in stone. And they have plausible deniability with all of this kind of stuff that they put out there, designed to confuse the mind, which is why they're so good at hiding behind entire groups of people, like anti-Semitism, to hide behind the Jews, because it's not the Jews' fault, it's the people behind pretending to be Jews. Like, you're homophobic.
That's heavily coming into dispute as of today.
Yeah. But it's like the LGBTQ thing. I mean, suddenly everybody's homophobic if they don't agree with kids being mutilated at 5 years old and getting puberty blockers and having their penis chopped off. Suddenly you're homophobic. That's the genius of how they do this with these limited hangouts, where you get this black and white situation and you're either wrong or you're right. But that's not the truth, and I spoke to somebody the other day who said something very wise. It was Stephen D. Kelly, who is trying to highlight stuff about the citadels under the Getty Museum in California. And he witnessed the American army, the CIA, come in and destroy an entire village in the jungle in South America when he was young. And he said he lost his innocence that day. And he also said, the yin and yang thing with the black and the white coming there. He said he saw that in his mind's eye start spinning, and he realized from that day, and I really resonated with it, there is no black and white, everything's a gray, because when you spin that around, you get this kind of gray color, and that's part of the beauty of the duality of this existence, is that we are constantly trying to work through that. And like Abby said, everything's a choice, and these choices are on a micro daily level and a macro level, and that's what everybody's starting to see, that this is nothing to do with politics. It's nothing to do. It's simply a choice between good and evil. And there's a bifurcation going on in the human race where we're going either this way or this way. And everybody's being given the opportunity to make that choice on a daily basis. And that's the brilliance of it. And the reason why, if you're watching this and you're thinking, but I'm scared, well, that's the point of it all. You're supposed to be getting through your fear of death, which is ultimately what this whole life is. I mean, this whole life is like one big magic mushroom journey. It's like, or an ayahuasca journey, where you get, the first thing that happens for most people on plant medicine like that is the fear of death has to be taken away from you. And usually that is by the spirit of the plant showing you what death is like, which is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing, this is the death of the human race. Look around you. Oh my God. And it's something you have to go through. We have to go through the dark to get to the light, ultimately.
Yes. And I would consider that there's a documentary out there. I saved it on my hard drive for ages, or I saved it on a tab, and I bloody deleted it before I actually got to watching it. But it was saying the gist I got from it was that the Georgia Guidestones were actually really genuine. That they were put together by someone that had just had this vision for the future, that they saw man as the parasite on the planet. And if you think back to what I was saying about to have an existence where we're not raping the planet, we're not taking all the oil out, all the coal,
We're not. We're not. The human race isn't. They are.
Yeah, they are, but it is quite, convenient, Mark, innit? If it's a bit of a nippy day, you just whack the fire on, or...
That's because that's what I said about being born into this system. It's like you get born into the system where this is money, you don't question what that is, and that's how you get food. You don't go and grow it yourself, you don't go... This is the heating system, this is how you turn it on. And most people don't go through the thought process of what all this is. Therefore, things like this are great for making us go, well, is there a better way? And that's what I meant about, but it's not black or white with the choices we're being presented with, because there's already, I mean, just go and research the ECAT generator. It's a very, very cheap way of creating electricity and heat for everybody, very, very low cost. Go and research the work of Nikola Tesla. Look at the fact that Tesla built a car that was powered on nothing 100 years ago that got turned down by the petroleum industry. Look at the guy who invented the car powered by water in the 70s, and I think his last word, or the 80s, and his last words were, as he was coming out of the restaurant, they poisoned me, after a meeting with the car industry. This stuff's all been suppressed, and it is coming out. There's no doubt about it. All of this
Every
ancient
time I
knowledge.
visit you in your village, you say to me, look at the river there, and if we put this and this and this into the river, it would make enough electricity for the whole village.
Yeah. I mean, there's turbine technology. Now, this river here that goes through this town in the west of Ireland this river used to power the whole town for electricity until the government comes in and goes, no, we're centralizing it. Let's take that big wheel out of there, and then you will plug this in. But all the people that are born into that system, they don't know how else to get electricity. And also, they're kept deliberately dumbed down. They're deliberately dumbed down by the indoctrination camps we call schools. So, I don't blame what I'm saying, Chris. I don't disagree with what you're saying in essence at all. I just think, we've had the finger pointed at us so long that we're starting to believe it's true, and it isn't. We are not. What's going on is we're now seeing them for who they are and the tricks and lies that they've played upon us, and it's time to stand up and do your own thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean going out and fighting them. It means building the future that we want to see, which is why I opened a healing center here a year ago. And we're healing people today, now, right now. There's people in there being healed, and it's a beautiful thing. And if you told me, like you said, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be doing this, I'd laughed at you. Even this shamanic conversation, maybe 10 years ago. So it's up to us. There is nobody coming over the hill on the white horse. We are the saviors that we're looking for. It's down to us. And some of us do it by talking. Some of us do it by writing books. Some of us do it by getting up every day and helping people, and looking for better ways. And if there's people that disagree with you, then just go and build your own thing. We've got the power. We've got everything we need to build a beautiful world without raping it, with living in harmony with nature. We have all of this already.
Well, we certainly have had it. that I think that's the whole point of the story of the Garden of Eden, wasn't it? Is at one time we did live in harmony with the nature, and then
I don't know, it depends who's telling the story. I heard a different version of it recently, and it was totally twisted around the other way around. There's this one essay. If anybody watching this is a Star Wars fan, you need
Me.
to look up Charles Eisenstein, and he writes from the point of view of the Sith, and he says the Jedi were the bad guys because they're the ones who had mind control. These aren't the droids you're looking for. They made everybody believe that the Sith were the bad guys, but the Sith were the good guys. And it really skews the way you see everything. And we need that right now. That's what we need because we've always been told what everything is. And we have to take a big step back, reclaim our power, and say, hang on a minute, I want to see what it really is, or even what it is to me. I initiated 80 people 2 days ago into a new healing modality that came to me in the Sahara. And somebody thought they were posting a beautiful image in our little private Telegram group. And for me, it was harsh and nasty. And I deleted it and I said, this isn't in resonance with our group. And then he explained why he thought that it was. And I said, I hear you, and I'm totally with you on that. And that's like somebody seeing a 3 and thinking it's a 6, or a 6 and thinking it's a 9. We have to have those conversations. And as long as people are keeping getting shut down and censored and not allowed to think and not allowed to change their minds, that's another thing that's going on. You say, okay, I like this guy, now I don't like this guy. But how could you do that? Because I'm an adult and I think about stuff. We need to grow up. And we need to say, okay, well, what if Mark, this as an example, calls a town meeting and says, right, let's put the wheel back into the river and let's make our own electricity and feck, the electricity companies and all of that. It could be really interesting to see what happens if there's people who want to help you because we need the groups to do it.
I
Evil
already
always
know
happens in
what's going to happen.
groups.
Yeah.
Which,
I already know what will happen, but
yeah, but I mean, evil
it is
happens
part of
in
my
group.
plan.
Caroline Miss says this. It's very easy to be evil when you're in a group, and not so easy to be evil when you're on your own.
Mm.
But the groups of people who are good, who aren't putting up with the evil anymore, are growing.
I just want to point out to the viewers, the Jedi are the good guys, all right?
We don't know that for
Mm.
sure.
This is not the conversation you're looking for.
Guys, it's been a great chat. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to cut it there because if it's not out of rudeness, it's just people just don't watch long podcasts now, and I want people to watch this. So, wish you all the best with your book. Good luck with it. Should we all just say one thing for people out there who might be struggling at the moment? Can we all give them a word of wisdom? I'll go first. I always think try and seek the gratitude in this life, because it's an incredible life. It doesn't always seem like it, and we all understand that. But to think that some people have this experience cruelly snatched away from them without any choice, and yet here we are, we can create our future. And it might take a bit of work, might take changing a few paradigms, but we can actually create, just, it doesn't have to be a multi-millionaire empire future. It could just be something nice and simple, like sitting in a park, feeding the ducks, sun on your face and a big smile, go home for a nice cup of tea, is gratitude. I'd say start practicing gratitude. Abby, do you want to go next?
Yeah, if you're struggling right now and you're exhausted, I would just get you to imagine that you are a container. So a container could be a cup or a barrel or a vase or a petrol tank. I like the petrol tank one because petrol tanks have a gauge and you can see how full or empty you are. So I've been talking on this podcast about getting your power back. You could be nearly empty because your power is gone. So start saying it. I want my power to come back to me, clean, please. And see that needle coming up. But you have to remember that if you are a container with a hole punched in it, or with other cords leading out to other people, you have to cut those off too, because as soon as you fill yourself up, you're emptying out again. So patch yourself up, and you can do all of this in your mind. You can use the strength and power of your imagination to say, I'm not going to live like this anymore. Because when you reach a certain level of fullness of your tank, let's say, you have more energy then to do all the things that you know you want to do, but maybe right now you don't feel like you're able to do them. So start with filling yourself up first, and then you'll be amazed after a few days, you'll retain that juicy goodness that is your life force energy, and then you'll be able to start to create what you want in your life. So there's my piece there.
Brilliant. Mark, to close.
Well, I heard the other day a story about a retreat that I'm going to look into. And the story went like this, that you go to this place for 28 days and you're surrounded by monks at the top of a mountain, like Kung Fu style. And you walk up to this place and you're giving very simple instructions. For the next 28 days, you have to stand up straight and smile. And that's it. And then if they catch you not smiling or not standing up straight, they'll give you a task like, go and fill up this pail of water. It's 12 miles in that direction. And then you'll walk down the hill, go and fill up the pail of water and walk back. And the monks will be there with binoculars watching you. And if for a second your smile drops, they'll tell you to go and do it again. And by the end of this 28 days, every single problem, illness in everybody that attends this has gone, which proves to me it's all up here. And you have the ability to change the software that's in here. And the best way to do that is to switch off everything that's coming in that isn't your connection to source.
Absolutely brilliant. Friends at home, I hope you've enjoyed this chat as much as I have. We'll put a link for the book below, along with Mark and Abby's socials. If I can just ask you to like and subscribe and click the notification bell, yada, 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 yada. And just a special thank you to all of our Patreons and those people that support us on Locals or who have become YouTube members. That's it. Much love. See you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers,
Thank you.
cheers.